Yeah, man.
Just admit, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcomes I call to order the July workshop of the Escambia County School Board. The purpose of this workshop is an open discussion on items brought forth by the board and superintendent, along with a review of the agenda items for our regular meeting. Please silence your cell phones and other electronic devices at this time. If you wish to speak at the public forum, you must complete a speaker request form located on the table at the rear of the room and bring it to Ms. Harrell at the front table. Moving into our discussion, first thing we have, board members, is the calendar. We will look at the rest of July and August and also look at a date in September. So if everyone would look at July. Any additions or corrections to the July calendar? Let's move on to August. We have on the 31st of July the adoption of the tentative budget. Oh, and Mr. Superintendent, on the administrative conference, on this 22nd, where's that located?
Bailey Middle School.
Bailey.
Look forward to having all of you present.
Okay. The administrative conference on July 22nd at Bailey Middle School.
It actually, I think they'll have some light refreshments beginning at 7:15, and the conference actually starts at 8.
Okay. We'll adopt the tentative budget on the 24th. The 31st is the adoption of the tentative budget. August, we have discussion workshop on the 14th, regular board meeting on the 19th. And the school board is going through master board training, so I'd like to look at September 3rd, the 11th. We're going to meet that morning at 8:30, but we need to have is approval of AFR on that day, so we can meet at 11:30. Every board member can make that day. September the 11th, 11:30. 8:30 is the master board. And then we have to approve the annual financial report. So we're going to do that at 11:30. And then we have our discussion at 1 p.m. All board members okay with that? Anything else for the calendar? And we move on next, Mr. Superintendent, we have public forum update.
We had quite a number of speakers. The majority of them were on in the book review process, and there's a couple of items on this month's agenda that should address all of those public forum updates.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we're going to move item 43A. Going to move that up from the regular agenda. This is the appointment of the internal audit. Mr. David Bryant is here to answer any questions that we may have.
So David is wearing UWF colors today.
I think it might be Pensacola State, I'm
And
not sure.
this is Todd Wilson, chair of our audit committee. Thank you for being here, Todd.
So actually, I was going to go over a couple things. There's actually an item underneath the auditing agenda as well. I figured we would kind of knock them all out at one time, if that's okay with the board.
Yes.
The one item underneath internal auditing is the quality assurance review. Everybody always loves to ask who audits the auditors, and this is who audits the auditors. Our standards require that every 5 years an independent body come in and assess our compliance with the global standards. And so they look at everything from the way the department's designed, our charters, school board policy, how we manage the department, how we conduct our audits, what our reports look like, how we follow up on findings, you name it. There's about 150, 175 standards that they test us against. And so the way the process works is they have a bunch of different bodies that will do this for you. We go through the Association of Local Government Auditors. They randomly assign people. The two people that came to our district, one was from Washington State and one was from Miami-Dade. And so they were here the week of June the 9th. And so they look at all of our audits, all of our paperwork, they conduct some interviews, and then they determine compliance with the standards and they issue this report. And so the highest level of conformity that you can get is that you generally comply with the standards, and that's what our office got. And they did have one recommendation, and it had to do with doing annual internal assessments of your quality. When it comes to quality, you can either build those processes or build that quality into your processes. Make sure that you have people that review things and make sure that you have just different things as part of the ongoing process. But what the standards like to see now is that you basically every single year kind of do a mini assessment of yourself, and they want that process to be formalized. And so that was their recommendation to us. We did respond and say that we agree with that, and so we'll develop a process by which every single year they'll pick some standards to look at and kind of do a mini assessment to say this is where we're at with the compliance. The standards require that we present to the board this conversation, this report, the management letter that they sent with the recommendation, and then what the district's response was. So that's the one item under internal auditing. I did want to give you another update. I think Ms. Odom sent it out to you yesterday or the day before. For those of you that were here or weren't here, we had lots of problems with FEMA on our debris, and they wanted to pretty much question every single dollar of it. And after a lot of time being fed up, we decided that we were just going to go to arbitration with them. It was a binding arbitration, and pleased to report that the arbitration board found completely in our favor. Over $1 million that FEMA was holding out on us just for ridiculous reasons. And so they dismissed all of FEMA's administrative arguments, and then when it came to the merits, they said, look, you've documented your debris so many different ways. And they said, you're entitled to all of it. And so what will happen now is that order will get entered into like the Florida Public Assistance database, and then that money will become obligated. So they've already obligated a portion of it, but they'll obligate the rest of it. There's no huge timeline or unknown timeline for when that'll happen, but the way it traditionally works, even with all the other projects, is once they obligate it, then we show them, because it works on a reimbursement basis, we show them that we spent the money, we give them the invoices, we give them the proof of payments, timesheets, all those different things, and then they'll send us the money. And then we work with revenue. When we know how much it's going to be, we'll let revenue know, hey, just be on the lookout for this, and then they'll let us know when it comes in. So that should put an end to our debris saga. Yeah, and that money comes in, however, Mr. St. Cyr will figure out the best way to use that, but I'm sure he could use $1 million right about now, so. Because it's money that we spent 5 years ago.
And thank you for that, doing that. That was great, along with Ellen working with you. So good job by the team, whoever the team is. Okay?
It was an interesting process. It's one of those things where you're really passionate because you're right. Can't believe the obstruction that you get, and so you just write with lots of passion, and like I said, for them to come back as convincingly as they did, and I mean, they used the word frivolous more than once when it came to FEMA. So it was a good day for the district. The last thing we have, which is the item that was on the agenda, as you know, I'm no longer here, but I'm like the cat that you feed; you just can't get rid of me. So we had talked previously about the process for my replacement. It was one of the things that I was committed to helping the district do. And so we established a pretty lengthy process where we did the advertisement, we sent it out to professional organizations, we advertised with LinkedIn, we put it in News Journal, all those different things. We had the applications come in. We formed a committee. The committee was Ms. Odom, Mr. Wyndham, Ms. Pam Riley, who's over school internal accounts in finance, because that's so much of what internal auditing does. and then myself, and then a lot of you know Ms. Kiker, who's a former auditor in the office. You know, who better to judge the boss than someone that was under the boss for 20 years. And so that was the initial committee made up of district people. And so that committee held interviews over 2 days, interviewed 7 different people. And so that committee ranked the individuals and made a recommendation to the audit committee to interview someone. And so the school board policy and the audit committee charter says that the audit committee is responsible for providing a recommendation to the school board for the hiring, firing, evaluation of the director of internal auditing. And so that committee made the recommendation to the audit committee. The audit committee met on June 30th and conducted the interview and overwhelmingly agreed with the committee. Person that we thought was a good replacement for me. The person that we recommended, the person that they're recommending, former member in the office, bachelor's degree, master's degree, has a certified fraud examiner certification. He's worked in the departments, familiar with the district, so I think it'll be a good fit, a good transition. This person has done inventories. This person has done school internal accounts audits. This person has experienced FEMA. This person sat across from principals before doing exit conferences. So it's going to be, I think it'll be a really good transition for the district. Has a good demeanor when it comes to people as well. And I think that's important. I think she recognizes that you know, we're here at a spirit to help. And it's not about gotcha auditing, it's about helping people and that we're all on the same team. And that was really important to me when I was here. And I think that she's going to kind of carry that on. So Mr. Wilson from the audit committee chair, he's here. And also Ms. Lane, the recommended candidate, she's here as well if anyone has any questions.
Anything from the board? Can we bring Ms. Lane, bring her up?
Ms. Mackenzie Lane.
Yeah. Would you like to say anything, Ms.?
Well, just I want to thank the interview committee, the audit committee. I'm really excited to be back. Of course, once y'all approve me, please. But someone asked me actually this week, did I feel like I was going home? And I said, actually, yes, the district feels like home. So I'm really excited to be back. So.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
And Mr. Bryan, thank you for all you've done for our district. Really appreciate it. You'll be missed, but we know where to find you.
David, same for me. Great job. Your staff did a great job on all these audits. Whenever you go out and look for all that equipment and everything, and I remember with the federal government, I did it with the Department of Defense. That's a hard thing to do, to track down everything. But who's going to eyeball those booster clubs?
There's still someone in the office that does that. The inventory position is actually vacant right now. You'll probably get a recommendation from the audit committee about adjusting that job description. They had a meeting to discuss that. But that position, I figured before I'd let the new director handle some of those things. And that way that person gets an opportunity to put their stamp on the staff and how they want to run the show. And so I think that's best.
Mr. Harrell.
David, I want to thank you for your service to the district and all you've done, and thank you for the $1 million, too. And you and Ms. Odom.
Yes.
It couldn't have come at a more timely time. We wish you well in your new endeavor, and thank you again for all of your years of service and all the things that you've done for this district.
Ms. Fesco.
And David, I want to thank you too. For all the years that you've been here, the way you've carried yourself, the way you've conducted business, the way you've treated people has given everyone the confidence that you earned and you definitely deserve. We had never a doubt that when you brought something forward, that you did it to the best of anybody's ability and that we could count on everything you did as being complete and right and just. So if you continue that in the future, you'll continue to go wherever it is your heart leads you. Thank you.
Ms. Bogosh.
And David, I would like to echo all my board members. Thank you so much for your work and your dedication to our district. I haven't had the opportunity to work with you as a board member, but I've worked with you in the past. So thank you very much for your hard work and your love for the district. It really shows. And we can always find you if you wear that green tie.
There you go.
Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Superintendent.
Yeah. So David, on behalf of all the staff here at the district, 57 different call centers. Thank you for everything that you've done. And also on behalf of an old social studies teacher, I'm very, very proud of you, young man.
Thank you.
Yep, way to go.
Thank you, guys.
Next, we have Mr. Superintendent, the school board policies 2520 and 2522.
Yes, sir. Hopefully I got each of you a paper copy of 2520 and 2522. The first thing I believe that you should always do is give credit where credit is due, and it is not due to me. It is due to Ms. Odom and a couple of other ladies that worked diligently to get all of this together for it to be in front of you today. And I think it would be appropriate for us to take 2520 first and go page by page. And as each board member sees something that perhaps is not exactly the way they want it, we can have that conversation. Or if you see things that are completely in alignment with the direction you have provided, really as all 5 board members, we'll put our stamp of approval on that and we'll get ready to go forward with the advertising and eventually the approval. So on page 1 of 5 on 2520, you do not see any highlighted information, so that should be exactly the same. Ms. Odom will stop me where I go awry. On page 2 of 5, once you get under adoption of instructional materials, right below the superintendent shall maintain a list of adopted instructional materials. Now you see the green highlighted. Print. Does anybody have any comment or wish to make any additions there? Ms. Odom?
I did want to point out that in the language that I believe Mr. Harrell gave me, he had said that he wanted verbiage that said there would be no sexually explicit material in instructional materials, supplemental reading, and library books. The way this rule is laid out, the first section, it's a little misleading because Neola doesn't do a great job of having different font sizes and enumerating different sections. But the first part of this has to do with the selection of instructional and supplemental materials. And so I split those two. That's why you will see something that appears to be a bit redundant, but a little bit more than halfway down the page. No, actually, I'm sorry. Where is the beginning of? I placed a section under adoption of instructional materials that included language that there would be no sexually explicit material in supplemental, instructional, and required reading lists. And then I repeated that when we get down to the section that deals specifically with selection of library and media center collections. So if you see some redundancy, that's the reason.
I'm very comfortable with that.
My only concern is I would like to include in that language as far as instructional, supplemental, donated books. So when we have community members, we know that it's specific. Can we do that?
I thought that was in there somewhere.
It is. It's
Oh, gotcha.
It's in the library, but what about classroom books? Like library classroom?
It addresses classroom library collections.
Okay.
So I've written down a word here. Do I need to not write down a word? Do we not need to worry about putting donated in the adoption of instructional materials?
I would probably defer to Ms. Vinson on whether or not that's even an issue. I don't. Okay.
The only example that I can think of, and we met the other day, we did have one instance of a really good group of people that was well intended. Have you ever heard of RIF? Reading is fundamental. I mean, we had a situation one time. You have any thoughts on the donating portion in adoption of instructional materials? We've got a couple more months that we'll be able to look at, and we'll make good, solid decisions. The next section with highlighted print is in school library, media centers, and reading lists. See that there? Give each individual board member the opportunity to discuss this language.
I would just like to note that the word donated is in the sentence above there with that.
Yes, sir.
And those materials, that was your concern, Mrs. Prakash. You can see that. It says donated or otherwise made available to students. And that certainly satisfies the language that I had submitted. Thank you.
I think, Keith, you can correct me, but isn't there a form they got to fill? Even if somebody wants to bring a movie into a class that's outside, or what? Isn't there a form they're supposed to?
Yes, sir. There's a form that the teacher, the certified staff member, and the principal sign off on for that material to be used.
If it comes from outside of.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think Okaloosa got caught in that on that
they did.
one movie, yes. It was not the historical movie.
I think, Mr. Adams, that also applies to if you bring a guest speaker in. You know,
It does. I don't know if this is the exact right time for me to mention this to you. Ellen and Mr. Wilson, Mr. Alaback, and Ms. Vinson, we've all had these conversations. From time to time, our students, really we have quite a number of students that take they're in the International Baccalaureate program. They are in AP courses, dual enrollment courses. So we want to make certain that we also provide opportunities for those students, especially with the required instruction or reading that might be required by that particular course, that we don't hamstring them from being able to take AP. So far, I shouldn't say the biggest regret. One of the regrets that I have was early on we had to make a decision, and we made it quickly about AP psychology, and our students lost the opportunity for that entire school year to take AP psychology. That's not, today we've been in master board training, and overwhelmingly everybody talked about students first, all of us. So we want to make sure we keep that not in the occipital lobe, but in the front of our mind. So keep that in mind as you go through all of these two policies, and in particularly when we do something else in today's agenda, because there may be a few instances where I have to tell you maybe there were 12 books that were on certain lists that have been used in IB, AP, and dual enrollment. We want to make certain that our students have that opportunity. We do have a mechanism that would allow that to occur if this board is in agreement with it. All right, we'll move to page 3 of 5, and there's quite a bit of highlight here. Ms. Odom can help us if you have anything that you need that is not here, or if you would like to amend it. And thank you, I can tell all of you have gone through this with a fine-tooth comb. Yes, sir. I figured it's better for us to hear you talk than me.
Right.
I like the fact that the AP, IB, and other similar programs that you have there, that option there gives an option for the superintendent there. So that's, I would like to see us do that. I don't know how the other board members agree.
That, I will say this, that presently is not, and this is what's going to be coming up for discussion on later agenda items. As we understood the directive that was given by the board, if titles were removed by the Department of, or reported on the Department of Education's website as having been removed by other school districts, then they were to be removed from our schools as well. If we just went straight with that, as our rule stands right now with that directive from the board, the books that have been used in the AP and IB curriculum would be out. They would be gone. So that is something that I think Mr. Leonard was hoping to get some additional guidance as to whether or not, is it your intention that we just go ahead and remove all these books, or do we have some flexibility to say, we can hang on to these books until this policy gets into place, and those kinds of books will be made available with parental consent. Right, exactly. And I did want to let the board know, you'll see that I've put some options in here, kind of, you probably remember when we were going through the whole Neola process and you could choose this option or that option. I borrowed that strategy because as I was, there are a lot of decisions in here that are not my decision to make, they're not Mr. Leonard's decision to make, it's up to you. And so the first one that I was considering is, do you want it to be a blanket application that if a book has ever been removed by any school district, it's out, or it falls under whatever the parameters are that we're going to establish? Or do you want to look at if a certain number of school districts have removed it? You can certainly go down that road.
I'd rather just leave it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's
I'm in agreement too. I think if it's been reviewed by other states, we don't need to waste our resources and review it again. But with the exception of the APIB, we need to look at it more closely.
And I will tell you, Board, if it's something that's really, really bad, you're never gonna have a room full of people here that's gonna let us.
Right. I've already spoken, so I know she's got his light on.
Thank you, sir, for remember Bob's rules.
We're working on it.
I agree with my fellow board members. If it's been removed somewhere, it needs to be one that is removed. If it is utilized in any of these specific programs or for some other approvable application in the future that's not listed here, there is then keeping that possibility to look at that and bring it back on an individual basis.
And that dovetails nicely into the next option that you have is the sentence would then read, books of which have been removed by other school districts shall not be selected, period, or may be selected only upon approval by the school board. Frankly, you could, well, I think what Mr. Fetzko was saying is there may be instances in which you decide there may be a reason to keep just the AP and IB.
Yeah.
Well, this is going to get to a larger issue for discussion later, and I'm sorry for jumbling it all up, but it's a topic that needs to be broached. There are books that have made it all the way through our review committee, and all the way through board decision. The example that I think of is The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. We remember the 1 a.m. board meeting at which it was restricted to 11th and 12th grade.
11th, 12th grade.
However, some school districts have removed it.
Right.
So do we stick with the decision that the school board made regarding maintaining that book at 11th and 12th grade, or do we remove it? Because if the directive is that you have to remove any book that has been removed by another school district, then The Bluest Eye has to go as well, in spite of the work that this board did.
Yes, sir. Ms. Fesco.
Yes, ma'am. And my understanding when the Bluest Eye was discussed and gone through was that we kept it in because it was being used instructionally in IB, I believe, at that time.
I do think that is one that has been used in AP and IB. However, there are other books similar. The Nowhere Girls, I think, is that one? Nowhere Girls was a book that the school board again read the book and decided to keep it at high school level only, 11th and 12th grade.
If there's an exception, all he has to do is come back to the board and say, hey, we found something here.
Right.
We think, yeah, that's it. But I just want to make sure that, and we'll talk about book committees here in a little bit, okay? But I just want to make sure that everybody knows the game plan, and we're not going to have things swinging back into that media center without the board knowing, because we five are liable for whatever pornographic stuff is in our libraries. So we just want to make sure that there is no way that something's going to slide in there without us knowing it.
So what I would respectfully suggest then is, somebody had said shall not be selected, period. I would suggest that consistent with what I think that I'm hearing, it would actually may only be selected upon approval by the school board. So what that would mean is if there is this exception with the book for whatever reason, and Mr. Leonard comes forward and says, hey, I think this is a book that's appropriate, it's already been through the full school board review process, and we think it's appropriate to keep it in our schools at these grade levels, then it's up to the board to decide that that book can stay.
So what you're saying is it's going to be pulled unless the superintendent comes to ask the board approval?
Right.
Okay.
We would, well, and we actually talked about this more than once, several days. You're gonna make whatever decisions you make, and then Tuesday night, you're gonna make the decision. And it may be, all of a sudden, at the beginning of next school year, they list 2 books for AP that need to be read. They're gonna be required readings. I would do everything I could to get those to you on a board agenda as quickly as possible.
Right. Yeah.
That would be the plan of action. We do, yeah. Are you good, Ellen, with what we talked about? Okay. So the next section is the following standards shall be applied in considering whether to select a title.
I have a suggestion on for that one.
Yes, sir.
I got Clay County here, okay, and they use that junior high and high school. So they call junior high our middle school, it would be limited profanity, racial, or religious slurs. And then on high school, it's no pervasive use of racial slurs or crude or excessively profanity. And me and Keith talked about this because, we had that one book. You read the professional review, it didn't alert you to nothing, and there was 480 FUs in the book, okay? So some of this is going to have to be common sense if there's just 1 or 2 things in there, whether it's a whole bunch, so that's what I'm thinking. So that, they got it kind of aligned. I could pass this around. You want to see that? See that? Okay. Pass it to David. Might want to look at it. I got it highlighted, and that'd be a easy way. And if it don't work, we can come back and do it again.
I looked at that, Mr. Adams, also, and on my notes here, I put down limited profanity at middle school and no excessive profanity
Yeah,
at high
I
school.
think it's pretty close when you look at Clay County.
Yeah, I've got Clay County.
Oh, do you?
Right
Okay.
here, so that's where I borrowed that from, but I left off the part about the racial slurs and things like that. We haven't had a problem with that, and I don't know how we would. You want to see that, Mr. Leonard?
Yes, I have it.
Okay.
Okay. So I just said limited profanity and no excessive and then you get into the question of what is excessive and what is limited and things like that.
That's where the board's
that's what the committee and the board's there for. That's where our purview comes in.
That's right.
Once the superintendent brings it to us.
I feel like I'm back in the meeting we had 2 days ago with our team, because those were the same questions, what's excessive?
Yeah.
By and limited.
Right.
It's all about perception and perspective, isn't it? Didn't we talk about that today?
Well, I would imagine a media director or media specialist wouldn't want to come to the board with a recommendation on a book that has FU 480 times.
No, I'd be in
I don't
front
see
of
no
them.
literacy value to that.
And then really, we don't see anything else new until you get right above purchase of instructional materials.
Yeah.
Down where it says coordinator of media
Highlighted
services.
in green, just above purchase of instructional materials.
Okay, yeah.
Green thing?
Page 3 of 5.
You want to?
Green.
This is,
Which
okay, this is the area, the coordinator of media services and the media specialist. Should we also include donated in that area? It says purchases of books, supplemental materials, and reading lists. To include donated materials. So what, to get back what we were talking about, what's excessive, what's not, well, I think we need to be very specific about.
We could just say acquisitions rather than purchases.
Sure, that's fine.
Tom, did this have enough accountability built in that you wanted?
I would like to get some clarity on, with regard, I've made the notes, just look at Clay County's language, but Clay County specifically has profanity, racial slurs, et cetera, and I want to know what the boards will, it says no crude, elementary, no crude profanity. Here's the funny thing, this is how my mind works. no crude profanity, racial or religious slurs, but just regular profanity and racial slurs are fine if they're not crude. So, I would phrase it differently, but.
You can do that.
Okay.
As long as you get the same intent.
But then, so I guess my question is, do we want to include the language regarding racial or religious slurs? And Mr. Harrell and I had a conversation about this, and I'm absolutely fine putting in whatever we want. It's just I think we need to make sure that we have something that is sufficiently clear, because what one individual considers to be a religious slur may not be considered a religious slur to someone else. And this is kind of this interesting place we are where.
Did Tom write his about the way you think it should have been? Or
No. He didn't know that. I don't know that yours had any proposed language this specific. We just had very general conversations about it.
If you want to give your,
I'm perfectly fine with using this. Like I said, if you want to include profanity, racial or religious slurs, I'm happy to put it in there. I just need to know that that's what the board wants.
That's fine with me. I just I just think that we need to have a little clarification there. I had written in my notes here to leave it the way it was, the way you originally put it, Ms. Odom, but then I put for middle school limited profanity and no excessive profanity. And then again, you come back to the judgment, but as I said before, that's where the board comes in. The superintendent brings us, and if a book that has the F word in it 243 times that I looked at the other day, to me, that's excessive.
that's excessive. Yes.
And that probably would be one that we wouldn't have to bring back, but one that has 4 or 5 in it, but the content in it, it may be something that we have to look at. So I'm fine with what Ms. Odom put down on the first one, and if y'all want to add the racial, I'll go along with that. It doesn't matter to me.
What you got there, as long as
Okay.
it serves the same purpose. I don't know how the rest of the board members feel,
Yeah.
but.
We can go with it. I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I am.
So I need, what are we okay with?
I think we're going to use some modification of the Clay
Okay.
language.
All right. Good. Anything else on page 3 of 5?
Did you cover the part about certification there, Mr. Leonard? Down at the bottom there, right above purchase of instructional materials, and I think she added donate to get the donation there. Yeah.
That's where we were. We added the word acquisition.
I'm going to change that to acquisitions.
Changing-
So
Okay.
Purchase.
anything that we obtain, any new incoming books, regardless of whether it's by purchase, donation.
Okay. That was a thing that I had handed in as one of the things. I just wanted to be sure that we were very clear that the media specialist and the media coordinator were certified to the superintendent. That's our plus there, that it does not have any sexual explicit materials in it. Okay. Thank you.
We need to make darn sure the front door is closed for that kind of stuff, so while we're dealing with what's already in there, not have to deal with more coming in.
So I think that wraps us up in
Is there
2520.
anything else that you guys have seen in your reviews of other school districts' challenge policies that you would like to see reflected? Are there any other thoughts that you would like to share that I can figure out how to wordsmith to get it in here, or do you feel like this is a good starting point?
Okay, so we'll move to 2522, and I believe we can go all the way to page 3 of 5. And if I think a lot of this language is not necessarily redundant, but it's repeated in the early one, just with a few other items added.
On page
3 of 5, and it's not green this time, it should be gray on your
It's
print.
where- So what this first paragraph does is, we already have an existing provision that allows the superintendent and Mrs. Vinson to make a decision that a book it exceeds any standards that we want, and it's going to be removed. What this first paragraph does is it says that if there is a book that is challenged that doesn't meet the selection criteria set forth in the prior rule, then they can just decide to remove it. So if we have a book that is challenged because it's on the DOE list, that doesn't meet with the selection criteria, and we don't have to consider the challenge any further. They can just say, yep, it doesn't meet the selection criteria and it's off the list. So that's the effect of that first language. And then the second paragraph that was added was that would allow the superintendent, in consultation with the coordinator of media services, to dismiss a challenge that is frivolous or lacking in reasonable merit. I've added that in basically because a question that Judge Wetherill kept asking us was, what if somebody challenges not Draw Me a Star, The Hungry Caterpillar. The Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle. Illustrated children's board book. There's nothing obscene or pornographic about it. It's about a caterpillar that eats a bunch of food and turns into a butterfly at the end. And what if we got a challenge, but somebody said it's pornographic? By operation of the statute, if they challenge it on that basis, we have to pull it out of circulation until the challenge is completed. And as Judge Wetherill said, that book would sit in purgatory until the decision was made. And I apologize, he may not have been the one who used purgatory. That may have actually been the plaintiffs in one of the book lawsuits. However, you get my point. This would give the superintendent and Ms. Vinson the ability to look at a book challenge and say there is nothing wrong with this book. And just put it back on the shelves and not waste any more taxpayer dollars and district resources in considering something that's just frivolous.
And I agree, and once again, that's something, I don't think he would make the wrong decision, but if the citizens thought so, they come here to this boardroom and we'll listen to it and we can do something if required. So I agree with that.
I agree, and I think this is exactly what was said a long time ago, that the superintendent does have the authority to do these things, so we should make sure that that authority and responsibility is still in his hands.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I agree with that totally. The superintendent has to make the school district work on a daily basis. He's the front line out there, and he needs to have the authority to look at these and decide whether this is appropriate under our policy or not and move forward. That's what we would expect of him, and that's what he does. So I agree with that totally.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Williams, you got anything? Okay, so we go to...
Mr. Superintendent, before you go off there, because it's right below there, I want to talk to the board about an issue, and I talked to Keith about it. With us trying to move these books quickly and make sure we don't have any migrating back in, I told Keith I don't see the reasons to have a book committee as it is now. I told Keith he can have his own little district, little committee, so if they look at the book and think it needs to come to the board, it just comes right to the board, and make a decision instead of going through a blue team, red team, how many's on each committee, coming down here. We're ultimately going to be the ones that make the decision at the end. And I just think it's probably time, because if not, we're probably going to vote 5-0 on something, and we're going to have a committee vote 5-0 the other way, And the committee's we can't delegate our responsibility to the committee because we're held responsible on these books. So,
and I try to talk to all 5 of you.
Yeah.
And we talk about a lot of different things, and it's a welcome conversation.
Yeah.
Tell you exactly why it's not. What I can tell you, I think that would be important, is at the last board meeting, as we were having conversations here at the dais, that sentiment was not unified. So what you're going to see Ms. Odom has worked on is we still have the district review material committees is in this language. So if that's something that 3 out of the 5 or all 5 of you want to change, we need to know. You don't have to do it right now, because, you know, there'll be another time when it comes before. But the other night, when we were all together at the board meeting, that was not a unified.
I don't think we even mentioned that part of it. I don't think we talked that much about that. But as I was looking at how the motions got incorporated in this,
Yes, sir.
you know, to move quickly, so we don't paying $300,000, I'm sorry.
Yeah, point of order. I think Mr. Harrell was next. Let me give everyone a chance to speak.
okay.
Give everyone a chance to speak on it, then we'll move on.
I'm wondering, I wanted to ask Ms. Odom a question. Aren't there some statutes that say we have to have community input in this?
There are various aspects of the law with regard to selection of books that require us to have community input.
Does it specifically say we have to have a committee to look at?
I don't recall, it's been a minute since I've looked at that, and there've been a lot of other issues that have cropped up between, this and 1467, I think which is what got the ball rolling.
Clay
That's your quote from
County
the federal
has
judge.
a district review committee that is district.
We don't, we're not required to have it.
But-
So the federal judge, that's Weatherall, that's what he said. I got.
No, what he was referring to is there's nothing in our current policy that requires a book to be resolved through, we have a committee, but he said that under our policy, it doesn't have to go to that committee.
Yeah. Our policy said it may go to it could have come straight to the board, but we didn't do that.
I'm not opposed to what Mr. Adams is saying here about taking that out. I think we just have to move a little cautiously, you know. With that, I agree with the concept that it's got to come to the board anyway.
It's gonna come to the board anyway.
Yeah, there you go.
So why put the citizens through that?
Yeah, I just wanted to be, the point that I was trying to make, I wanted to be sure that if we do that we're not violating any statutes or,
Right.
or community input and things like that. Okay?
And he could still have that district committee where they
Right.
have the principal and the parent on there, however they want it, but just not
Ms.
the way we were doing it.
Burgos.
I agree with Mr. Adams. My only hesitancy, I think we need to move slowly on if we were looking at community input, because I think that's very valuable. So I'm going to pause on that right now. You know, I think the book review committees can be very instrumental. But I do agree that maybe we need to revamp some of those committees, because I think maybe some of them may have their own agenda and they want to, you know, kind of stymie our book review process. So that's my only concern. But I do agree that we need to look more closely, but let's just do it cautiously.
And I would like, I'd just like to have the option, still have that option as a resource, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future, that we might need public input on something. I'm open to still holding on to the committee, but I do understand what you're saying.
I figure we're going to get plenty of input, public input right there at that podium like we usually do. But I was going to tell you, even the Supreme Court is split on different agendas. So we've seen these last couple of votes. You had the conservative side. And, you know, I was the one that proposed to put
I wasn't going to bring
people
that.
from each board members, and it got into a game on phone calls I had and people trying to game the system. And in the end, the state attorney said, you five are held legally responsible. That's why I didn't want the board, and I hope we got it in there, I don't know, Ellen, that if we do keep the committee, they should not have the power to put a book back on that bookshelf. It has to come to the board.
It
It's been
does.
challenged.
I believe the way I've read it is even if it went to a district review committee, it would still come to
Yeah.
the board for final approval.
You mean
Yeah.
the DOE, the books that have been removed because of the DOE removal?
No, I'm talking about just a regular challenge coming in. That what we've had in the past is the book committee can approve that book to go back on that shelf without it ever coming through the board.
Correct, because, but the challenger has the option of appealing that, and if they choose not to appeal it, that's
But I'm
the
not concerned about the challenger. I'm concerned about us five board members who are legally responsible for that book going back on that shelf from a committee.
Okay.
And we've had many, many examples of the board being 180 degrees out with committee. So that's why I put that in that motion I had, is ZAZAC makes a recommendation on the tennis zones, but they don't go out and rezone. You know, I mean, we don't have a committee that has a executive authority, but how we got this committee, they could place a book right back on there, and unless somebody calls us and lets us know we got a problem, then,
So
yeah.
let us do a little more work on it. We
Okay.
hope to be able to have it on the agenda for you next month, but let us do some work. Let me talk to Mrs. Odom, and she'll set me straight about how we can word it to where
Make
if
a
it went through the
recommendation to the
district
board.
review committee, regardless of the decision, it would come back to the board for final approval.
It-
If you want to keep the district in
If they want to
the
recommend it
concept
on the
in the
shelf.
way it is now, I don't know.
Mr. Jensen. Ms. Fesco.
Yes, sir, thank you. My initial blink of the light was to talk about what Mr. Harrell brought up, but was there a requirement to have the committee, and that's been taken care of. Then I listened to Mrs. Burgosh, and I agreed with her, like, ooh, let's not knee-jerk reaction. But as I sit here and listen and contemplate and think about the history of this whole thing, we have seen our own creation kind of work against us. And at this point, I know there'll be consternation and gnashing of teeth and the whole bit, but I would be more in favor of saying, okay, we are not going to have a standing committee. If at some point in the future we need to assign or come up with a committee to do something, we'll do it at that point, but it comes back to us, we do it, and we don't have the committees going, and I'd rather just nip it in the bud right now because it has not served us well. Or it has not served the students, in my opinion, well.
I think Ms. Odom was
The one thing I will say with regard to the book committees is, we will still have numerous challenges. I haven't done the math, so I don't know what the numbers are, but after we eliminate all of the books, let's say for the sake of argument that all of the books on the DOE list are removed from our shelves, we're still going to have some books that have not been removed that are under challenge, and we need to have a way to address those.
That's what I had told Keith. We have a media director, we have media specialists, and they should make a recommendation to that superintendent. Do we keep it or not? And Keith will bring it to the board
Okay.
and say, hey, I recommend this book to go back on the shelf. I don't believe that challenge was,
So I can give you a little,
so that's where I'm at.
so there probably, I don't want to put Bradley on the spot or myself. There are probably quite a number of books that are still challenged that Miss Vincent and I have gone through, all of them. And once again today, we were talking about perception and perspective. We would look at those and we'd say, you know, really what we want to do here is have some people call them the coffee crew. I didn't know that's what they were called, but it's a group of our media specialists that review and make some really solid decisions about different books and whether or not they're going to have them on their shelves. Bradley, am I close? When if I guess 20 of them, that's what we wanted to occur, more than that. So it certainly can be something that we do. That just has never been codified in a policy.
Right.
But that's one of the reasons it was, that's one of the reasons it probably didn't happen as expeditiously as everybody wanted it to.
Right. And see, that goes to Tom's accountability issue. So we got an accountability process there. Media specialists get together, whatever team you want to set up, you know, and make the recommendation to you, bring it to board, and as long as somebody don't tell us there's 248 vulgar words or something at this podium, you know, we'll go with your recommendation. Yeah.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, sir.
It's my turn again. I said, you know, we just went through a certified board
Yeah, we're
training. I want to
trying.
be sure. All right.
Protocol.
Protocol, that's right. What I wanted to say is, I'm not opposed to a district committee looking at that. I'm not opposed, and I like what Ms. Burgosh said, maybe move a little slow. Maybe that what we need to do is go ahead and take care of the changes that we have and come back and look again after the superintendent's had a little chance to look at this. The district committee that Clay County has, that might be something we want to have a standing district. I'm not opposed to that either. I do think that what Ms. Burgosh said is so important. We don't want to look like that we're shutting out the community. We don't want to look like that the community is not going to have a chance for input. Of course, they have lots of input here from that podium every board meeting, which is a good thing, and statutes do say that they have to do that. I'd like to see the process streamlined. I agree with Mr. Adams on that. I'd like to see, we've got so much business to conduct, and this is part of it, and it's putting boys and girls first. What I think that we do is maybe move on with what we got and take a look at this and add something to it and come back to us. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Very comfortable with that, and appreciate the work Ms. Odom did to get us where we are today. And it will be better, to, in my opinion, to pause and sort of slow down, get what we've got, because we did not talk about not having the district material review committees at the last board meeting. I wouldn't want to show up next month and say we are. So I appreciate your attitude and the way you've worked through it. Any other questions on 2520 or 2522?
On page 4 or 5, it was highlighted or permitted. Are we leaving that, or that's?
That's just kind of a stylistic thing. I noticed that it referred to what is required by the policy, but then the policy also has a lot of permissive, so it's just making sure that we know we're talking about not only what is required, but also what is permitted.
All right.
Can I make another comment here? When we start, Mr. Adams, I commend you last time for bringing the book issue up and the resolution that you did. What it did, it moved us all center and got us started on a process, so thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to say was that I brought up the point that we needed to revamp our policy. And the board indicated all the different things that they wanted to have included in that, and I commend Ms. Odom and the superintendent for making that happen in a timely manner, okay? What I was mainly interested in is that we got rid of explicit section material, that we had some accountability, and that the process could go much smoother, and all of those things I think will happen as a result of this. And thank you, Ms. Odom, and thank you, Mr. Superintendent, for that.
Okay. This brings us to item 3 on the agenda, Mr. Superintendent, and additional comments.
We got quite a few today, okay, so it's going to take a little while. I think I'd like to start off with Mr. Bobbitt, and this is really what we're all about. This is the academic achievement for the 24-25 school year. He has a really good PowerPoint presentation. We'll make sure all of you get a copy, so when you're out there at your different meetings, you can brag about what we've done. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. So quick start with a reminder that for this year, we have 2 different grading scales, one for elementary and then one for middle, high, and what are called composite schools, which includes the district grade. I am anticipating that next year we will have 3 scales. I think that high school and composite, which includes the district grade, will go to a new scale next year. Percent of schools that made an A or B has gone above 75%. Yeah, they'll slide the scale for those 2 levels. They should let us know within the next couple weeks. So we should know before the school year starts. I think we will see a third one.
So if Warrenton with the charter school, if the scale had stayed the same, they would have made it this time, right?
Would have made it last time and this time.
And so now they're going to raise it again,
but not for middle. I don't expect them to raise it for middle.
Oh, okay, okay.
There's about 68% of middle schools that made an A or B. So the state law is written right now says when 75% of a level reaches an A or B, the scale goes up. I was a little surprised that for high school last year that they didn't set the scale higher because they were already at 72%. So I was anticipating this change this coming year. But we should know in a week or 2.
And that may be something to put on our bullet for the legislators. Come on, guys. Y'all just going to keep sliding up. So, yeah, without providing all the resources you're required.
Well, there was a bill that made it out of committee this year that you might want to look at that would move the scale to 70, 80, 90 in 3 years. Would mean we would have very few A and B schools would exist in the entire state if they did that. That bill actually made it out of committee this year. So Could be worse.
It didn't make it to the governor's desk, though, did it? Did that bill make it to the governor's desk?
No, it did not
Okay.
make it, it did not make it to vote because of everything that happened, but it did make it out of committee.
Tom, there was a huge amount of bills that just died on the Senate side from that battle between the Senate and the House this year. And in some ways, it helped us.
I'm going to do a little reality check, okay? When No Child Left Behind, remember that? Okay. Came out, it was that every student or every school or whatever would be at 100% in 13 years. The fallacy of that is 14% of our population is individuals with disabilities. So to expect 100% is a goal that, although nice to think of, is not reasonable to that will ever be achieved. And likely, or parallel to this, is as they keep moving this higher and higher and higher, the reality of it is that no one is ever going to get to the point where everybody's an A school in the state of Florida. It's a statistical impossibility.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right. I'm not as crazy as sometimes I think I am.
I can go further if it's okay. The way the test is designed, as a teacher, several teachers in here, I can design a test where everyone in the class makes an A. I can design a test where everyone makes an F. These tests are designed where 50 to 57, 50 to 60% of the students will not make proficiency. They are designed that way. And that's where the scale is set.
Go ahead, Ms. Bobbitt.
Okay. So overall, we are a B district. Our score went from a 59 to a 62. Overall, as you remember the previous scale, a 64 would have been an A. That doesn't mean we're 2 points away. That's 2 points on 12 items. So we're really about 22 points away from an A. But we have gone up 80 points since 2019. A little bit. We did rise a little bit on the list. We are still overall with a 62, just looking at that, we're tied for 32nd. If you look at individual points, we're at 40th. So we're in the mix with all the other B schools. So much higher. You're going to see that rise because I do a comparison with how we've risen versus the state as a district. So I want to point this out, and Mr. Harrell needs to stand up in a second back there. State of Florida, we are #1 for middle school acceleration. Now that is a combination of CTE and our algebra and biology pass rates. So that combined, we are #1 in the state. So looking at school grades over the past 4 or 5 years, since 2019, you will see that our A's and B's are the highest. The C's are down a little bit, but that's because our A's and B's are up. But we do have 3 D schools. But you can see the growth that we've had, and we have well surpassed 2019. And they have raised the expectation, the level of testing in that time period. So, how did we do? Breakdown. By changing grade level, 6 elementaries increased the grade level, 6, however, decreased. So we still have work to do. Middle school, 5 increased the grade level, 1 decreased, and in high school, 3 increased. It's one of those things that you move up, and occasionally like I remember I said the 5th grade was so strong last year. When they moved to 6th grade, those 5th grade wasn't quite as strong, so we saw a little bit of dip in places here and there. But most of them were real close to being like just below where they were before. They weren't. There were a couple that did drop, but most were like just barely dropping below. That is the change there. But we still have work to do. These are the state averages on each of the component, each of the tests, versus our average. And you can see that we are still trailing the state. I said back last month, and my anticipation was correct, we did exceed the state average in middle school algebra for the first time. And we're much closer with high school as well. But areas that we still have growth we're looking at. Same thing for social studies and science. And again, elementary 5th grade science, we are a point above the state average. So 2 areas we have reached above the state average. One of the things when the state put out the original growth, they talked about how much they grew from last year. So here's a comparison. For ELA, the state grew by 4%, we grew by 5%. Stayed the same with them 3 through 5th. 6 through 8, the state grew by 5, we grew by 8. 9 and 10, the state grew by 4, we grew by 5. So we are closing that gap. Math, well outperformed the state as far as growth. We haven't got there yet, but we are closing the gap. That jump in middle school algebra and high school algebra. Social studies. Did, however, slip a little bit in 5th grade science. We are still above the state, but the state grew and we actually decreased a little bit last year. But again, that 5th grade class that went through that was so strong, we came down a little bit. Federal index. This is the subgroups. I highlighted the CSI Part 4. This is the first year that this is now implemented. We have, after many years, finally reached year 6 for the first time last year. And so we do have some schools that will be classified CS and I, not because of their school grade, but because they have had a subgroup below 41, the old C, for 6 years in a row. That breakdown, a little history there. We do have fewer schools that have a rating, but we do have 15 schools that fall under CS&I now. 3 of them, the 3D schools. 6 of them because of their overall index, and those are our alternative schools, Success Academy, Achieve, the schools, Jackie Harris, that they don't have a rating, but they're overall, they're treated like they get a school grade in the federal index.
I thought it was a tie-back on Achieve.
They also tie back and affect our schools. They do both.
Oh my God.
The kids count multiple times. But we do have the six of the CS&Is are there because they have 6 years in a row. The students with disabilities, overall, like a school grade for them, like their own separate school, are below 41. I will tell you that we were looking at having 15 schools in this coming into this year. We moved 8 of them completely off the list that would have gone into year 6. So more than half, we took them off the list completely this year. Questions?
No questions? Great job, Mr. Bobbitt. Thank you for the information. And hopefully next year will be an A.
Close.
Getting close.
Close.
22 points?
22 points. Unless they raise the scale, then it's...
Let them raise the scale. But at least that's what I love about our CNI group. They're goal-oriented. And they're going to talk about those 22 points and what they need to do to get there. Another place where there was huge improvement was in our middle schools. It wasn't just an acceleration. It may be the best they've ever done. I don't know all the history here, but very proud of that. High schools. Last year, those of you that were at the admin conference, we talked about 14, 12, and 25 and how we wanted to turn that upside down. Well, we're on our way. So thank you for all of the work that each of you do.
Yeah, Mr. Barber, when will we know how long of a field goal we got to kick next year?
It has, by state law, they have to tell us before school starts. The assessment conference is the last week of July. I expect they will announce that.
And the schools will not have their school improvement plan finished by that time, so they'll be able to adjust.
They're due August 8th, so they have a week.
Okay. Mr.
Yeah, Keith, I want to thank you and your team. I'm going to say team, so I can cover everybody in there, educators, staff, everybody that worked. It was a good win this year getting those better grades. I know we got the 3 Ds, and I know we're going to figure that out. It's critical for Warrenton to come through, so I hope something happens there. But anyway, good job of moving up with the number A's and B's, so thank you, sir.
Mr. Harrell, did you have something to say?
The Warrenton, have we had any word on them? Because this is their 3rd year, right, at a D. Have we had any word from the state on that?
It's more than their 3rd year. It's more than that school's 3rd year of a D. No, I know that the turnaround statute speaks to so many years in turnaround status. And then you have contract that we have with that particular group. So no, I will wait for the State Board of Education to tell me which meeting to be to. Yes, sir.
Okay.
They for sure have one more. Yes, sir. While Mr. St. Cyr's coming up to the podium, I'll tell you one other thing. He's going to give us a budget update. We are in the mid-cycle of our accreditation. So I was hoping all of you could be at the excuse me, admin conference, because we'll talk a little bit about that. Escambia learning model, culture of learning, all those things, because we want to make certain that we all talk from the same, or sing from the same sheet of music. So you may see Cognia on our campuses early, probably September or October. Accreditation standpoint.
I'm sorry, sir, I will not be there. I will be in Pennsylvania. But I am cutting it short so I could get back for the 24th in order to be here for the...
Yes, sir. Yep, thank you.
Sorry.
And Mr. St. Cyr, floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. This is the day we're going to talk a little bit about capital millage. And as we discussed a little bit yesterday, we're going to go through a list of departmental and school and overall district level needs in the millage funds, capital millage 3,700 funds. And we're going to, Elizabeth's got it on the screen if you can see it. If not, we'll blow it up a little bit more. But we'll start with the departments, and I don't really have any comments. If you have any, you go ahead and voice them. You see the departments and some of the proposed items that they need. And really, when they send something over, they need it. I mean, that's just, for the most part, they need it. And this is what has, and this changes throughout the year. So here's where we're at to start the new year, and we want to show you how much it costs and what they're looking to purchase. Any comments on that first section?
I'm just going to comment, and so this year is going to be a rough year of what I'm hearing. So like I told the superintendent yesterday, it's a good year to look and say, do we got to have it? Is it necessary, or can we do it another year? And that's where I'm talking to the superintendent, work with his staff to decide. I don't think it'd be hard for us board to come down, but we're going to be needing a significant amount of money to get out of the hole.
Ms. St. Cyr, the numbers that's in parentheses, is that the number of like 16? Does that mean 16 new buses?
Right.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Roll it a little bit.
Can you back up to the computers? It was a one-to-one for every student, replacing those that are outdated. Is that how that works?
That's, I don't know if anybody from IT is here, but Mr. Dennis can probably answer some of those for you. This is typical replacement cycle, Tom, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. This is to replace what we currently have. This is not adding any additional capacity or any
Yeah, I kind of figured that.
strictly replacement. Yes, sir.
Because we have,
And we have 1-to-1 in grades 3 through 12. And then we have some schools that have greater or have additional devices in lower grades as well.
okay, all right, thank you.
Sir, it's also important to note that we have a cycle, so we don't replace everything at once. If we break 1 year's cycle, then it will domino down in ensuing cycles.
John, on those radios, is that a annual purchase we do of that many radios, or is it
No, sir.
modernizing the whole fleet?
Again, it's very similar to what we deal with almost every major aspect, computers, buses, et cetera. There are cycles that we try and follow and adhere to. When we have a lean year, we just draw it back as tightly as we possibly can.
Okay, we can scroll down a little bit. These are not, where it says projects, these are more not necessarily tied to departments, although departments need to order them, but it's things that they need, as you see listed there. And then there's a few schools that need some copiers. Then we'll get into, all right, so that really is the discretionary stuff. That's the stuff that is ordered by departments and schools to take care of business, to replace things that are needed, that wear out, and various other needs. So the next section, we'll see transfers out of the capital millage into other funds. These are our COPS, debt service requirements. These are this is property insurance, transferring in to cover property insurance. So here's how it works. The capital millage is tied to all of our debt service except one, which are the sales tax revenue bonds, Series 2016, which built Beulah Middle School. The rest you'll see here, I'll go ahead and name it, the COP Series 2020A. The debt service requirements there are 0.58 millage, so that 4.9 million is the millage portion. There's also a sales tax portion to that one, but that built Pleasant Grove. The next one is Series 2023A, Myrtle Grove Elementary. Debt service requirements there for next year, for current year, is 1.8 million. That's interest only. Interest only. Principal won't start there until after the sales tax referendum. The current one is over in 2027. Sales tax, the new one that we're issuing, that will be priced next Wednesday. Series 2025A, debt service requirements, preliminary debt service requirements, 3.1 million. So that's our debt service attached to capital millage. And then we get into the eligible maintenance transfer into general. The top three, the COPS, we're moving, transferring out of millage into debt service funds. Each one of those has a separate debt service fund. And then like I say, the eligible maintenance costs, we're transferring those in on an as-needed basis as the work order system dictates, and they get it in the system. Then we run reports, see what's eligible, and then transfer in from capital millage into the general fund to cover those costs. Same thing with property insurance. We've got about 6.5 million there. It might be a little bit more than that, but we could legally transfer in if it was that expensive, 8.3 million. There is a cap at $200 per unweighted FTE for transferring into, from millage into general for property insurance. There's a cap of $200 per unweighted. We're under the cap. Eligible, here's the first time we'll do this, is the current, or the 2025 fiscal year, and now we have it budgeted for the new fiscal year as eligible school bus operators. Salaries and benefits for that. That's been about 2 years now. This will be the third year that you could actually move from capital millage into general to cover those salaries and benefits costs. We haven't done it. We didn't do it the first year. We didn't want to do it the first year because now you're starting to but we have no choice this in the current year and in next year to do that, to try to at least get mitigate some of the negatives we'll be running. So we've got about 10 million there. It could be a little more than that as we get through the actual salary and benefits costs. But that's probably the floor there, about 10 million. So total transfers from general into other funds is 31, right now 31 million. That is a hard cost. Then we have ERP system, and I may have missed something here, but this is close. We have ERP systems. You see the various vendors, IS Corp, Skyward, Kronos, Focus, Canvas, about 1.4 million. That's a pretty good estimate. And then we have the charter school portion. This is 60% of the earned millage that charter schools will receive from the district. 469,000, 60% of their total calculation. So next year, 2027, it would be 80%, and then the next following year we'd be 100%, which would be, I think it's around 750,000 thereabouts. All, the total. You'll see Warrington's portion there, 312,000. Keep in mind, I'll say it, Warrington is not eligible for state capital outlay. But if you recall, there was a push from the state to hand it to them anyway. So there it is, 312 million. We have the list. All the schools above it are eligible for capital outlay from the state. If they're eligible from the state, they're eligible for local millage too. Okay? And what did you say it again, Sean? Right, Burnville's not eligible. Sean just reminded me. Burnville is the only school that we have, right? The only one that's not eligible for a millage on the state list or the district list, okay? All right, and then we always need something. So we've got about 2.5 million that's unidentified, but we know we'll be having some emergency issues, so we've got that listed also. That's just a decent guess. So total, about 48.3 million. All right, now here's the revenue. The revenue will be based on a certified tax roll of 36.1 billion. Then at 96% at 1.5 mils. This is showing 1.5 mils, the full eligible, state eligible millage that a district can levy, 1.5 mils for capital outlay. That's for capital outlay only, 1.5 mils. Okay, so the revenue for that at 96% would be 52 million. So the 52 million minus the 48, we have about 3.7 million remaining. That would be considered a fund balance reserve. Okay, so that's pretty much it in a nutshell. That's what we'll be, and we're still working it. So there's other things that'll hit this, but we've got most of the costs, and we've got pretty much all of the hard costs there. So as we see things identified, we'll add them to the list, or we may delete some here and there. But probably that list is pretty complete.
Thank you, Mr. St.
All right,
Cyr.
thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and bring up Mr. Wilson, or he can talk from right there about open house and orientations.
What?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. A couple questions, Mr. St. Cyr. The 24-25 school year, what was our total millage revenue for the 24-25?
So we budgeted 32 million at 1.004 mils on a 34-point-something billion dollar tax roll.
Okay. So that's over and done with then. And have you done or considered looking at taking that number and reducing it, the total revenue by 3.7 million, what would that do to the millage rate? How much below 1.5 would that be?
I haven't made the calculation. It's an easy calculation, I just can't do it in my head. But
Okay.
if you want the number, I can get the number
Yeah,
after I get back to my desk there.
that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilson, you want to talk to him about open house orientation and the fast student recognition? And Mr. Wiseman, you can go ahead and start walking up this way.
So yesterday, the orientation dates were finalized, so that list is complete for all elementary, middle, and high school for orientation dates and open houses. So I will also be getting that to Ms. Buswell so she can get those out. And then Cody's going to be doing that out in a press release as well. It's also going to be on all the level directors' websites, pages. I did have a good conversation with Mr. Harrell last week about the MAC score. And so Mr. Bobbitt was kind enough to get me the names that are associated with those numbers that we were given. So there are 35 elementary students, including 2 from Pensacola Beach that we will also include. They will come September 16th to the school board to be recognized by the board. And then the middle school, including some of our charter school students that performed really well at Beulah, and then there was one at Warrington. There's 34 total, and that will be October 21st, school board meeting. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson, for your hard work on that, and thank the fellow board members for going along with that. I think it's so important to recognize those students who make the, I won't say perfect score, the MAC score on the FAST test. It's tremendous PR for our district. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent, for your help.
If I could add, I'm sorry, thank you, Mr. Harrell. One thing, the high school students, remember, the number is close to 100, and so I think the idea there was we're going to continue with Ms. Morgan working with those principals and just making sure that those students also receive some recognition.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the middle school number.
34.
34. Thank you.
So, Mr. Wiseman, if you'll come up and talk a little bit about some construction that will occur through our certificate of participation.
Yes, sir. I'll be glad to. As you all know, we had a meeting last week regarding our certificate of participation, which is looking at really 4 projects. Actually, we'll call it 3 projects and an initiative. Of course, Escambia High School's auditorium is one of those. Tate High School's auditorium is another one. And then a gymnasium and gymatorium, I affectionately call that thing that we have over there, that will be converted into an auditorium for that facility. This is the last of the parity projects that we have had. Many boards ago, this parity came along to develop something at one of the schools that every other school has. perfect example is our covered play buildings. That was the biggest initiative we have, built covered play buildings at every elementary school. We're one of the few districts in the state that actually have covered play buildings at all of the elementary schools. Those started out as, we call it version 1.0. That was a pretty simple version of that. We chose an architect for that, and we stepped with that architect throughout that entire process. We stopped at about 10 years ago and did version 2.0, which is just better. We have lessons learned, how these things held up. Each one of those facilities has the same exact building, however, it is made to fit the facade of the school. What that basically means is we go in, we've got this project designed, and the only thing that we really have to manipulate is the site work, where we're going to put it, what kind of, we're going to have chill water system, we're going to have a split system, whatever the case may be. And then we try to make that building fit with the architecture of the school by making sure that the colors match the rest of the school, making sure that the brick matches the rest of the school, so we don't wind up with something that looks like a bowling shoe. That's effectively what it looks like in many facilities. The same holds true with our auditoriums. The auditorium that we started with is a prototypical design. By state statute, you know, we're required, SREF, State Requirements for Educational Facilities, outlines how we do things and how what we're supposed to have in buildings based on the state requirements. So an auditorium should have X, Y, and Z. We can put more than X, Y, and Z into it, but we've got to have at least X, Y, and Z in that facility. So what we did is we chose an architect for that program, which is the prototypical design, and then we got input from across the board. We had Mr. Slayton came into the design review meetings. We had all of the schools, their folks at the time had input in it. Our fine arts department had input into the development of it, so that when we finished with what we had is we had a prototypical design that met all the requirements of SREF and all the requirements of the other facilities that would be getting that same type of facility or same type of building. So effectively what that meant was then we stepped back and had to design it so that it fit the facade of the school. So there's a big difference in the way Escambia looks and the way Tate looks. The Tate building its primary building in the front was built about 1960. There's one building, the Lipscomb building, kind of behind that. It was built prior to that. Those are the two oldest buildings on campus. At Escambia, the entire school was built at one time, and it's a mid-century modern look. So what we wanted to do is try and honor some of that architecture. So the pictures and renderings that you have seen are for the Escambia facade. We have not gotten to that point with Tate yet, although that's something we will be doing. Obviously, it's the same facility. It functions in the same manner. It meets the same requirements that Escambia has. We tried to meet the requirements of both schools. While Tate has a very large marching band, Escambia has a great deal of what was it that we have a recording studio inside the facility. I don't necessarily know that we'll have that at Tate. We may have that at Tate. And then we have a kickoff meeting. We begin to design the next round of work in this in Tate. We will have the input from their people who are on the ground in that. But the basic building itself will remain the same, and then we will make it look as though it was always there. We'll match the brick. We'll try to honor some of the architecture of the Tate building. You know, it's got arches in the front of it. The location we don't exactly know yet, but we're still working on that. Same thing holds true for the gymnasium at Pine Forest. We will do something similar to that. We'll honor the architecture of the building. Once again, try not to make the place look like a bowling shoe, look like we continue to add here and add there. Those are the initiatives that we have currently going on. That obviously we have an architect for the two auditoriums. We do not have an architect chosen yet for the gym and gymatorium renovation. We'll be doing that here in the next few months. And then the other portion of this initiative is a prototypical classroom addition that we will do. Essentially what we'll do with that is we'll have to have pretty much two different types of prototypical design. We need classroom additions at high school, and we need classroom additions at elementary schools. This is to do away with our modular and portable inventory that we have and have permanent classroom structures in those places. If you take a look, we will probably have a high school / middle school prototypical building, because it's easier to pull a high school down to a middle school level than then an elementary up to a high school level. So those are kind of the initiatives we've got, and then the next COP that we will have additional classroom additions and the Beulah Intermediate, I'll call it. I'll be glad to answer any questions, you guys, if that answered any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. I asked the superintendent to ask you to come and give the board a quick update on that, because it started with some concern at Tate High School with the picture that was in North Escambia about it not matching the facade of the front of the school. So I wanted to be sure that everyone understood that it is going to match, the brick's going to match, the architecture and so forth will match, just like what they selected at Escambia. So thank you for the update. That was very informative and appreciate it.
This will be an opportunity for us to change the elevation of both high schools. So this will give some lipstick to the front of the schools. It'll have a totally different look coming down 65th to Escambia. It will have a totally different look at Tate. It'll dress up the front. It'll give us an opportunity to fixing a lot of problems at Escambia, flooding and things like that. And Tate as well will give us an opportunity to change some of the way that facility looks.
Another thing that I wanted to mention was when we had talked earlier, all of the community input and everything that was put into this, and I wanted to be sure the board realized that there had been a tremendous amount of community input into these projects. And thank you.
Bear in mind too, our Phase 2 and Phase 3 meetings are public meetings. They are open to the public. We advertise them just like we advertise your meetings. So anyone from the public can sit in on any of our design review meetings. They're long and can be kind of boring, to be honest with you, unless you just get into the stuff like I do. But yeah, anybody can come to them, sit in, and be glad to listen to anything anybody has to say.
Sure. These wings you're developing, well, they could also be used for the K-8s that we're going to be doing in the future?
Yes, sir. It's a very basic classroom addition. It's not unlike, you go to Workman has a classroom addition, Brentwood has a classroom addition similar to that, Bellevue similar to something like that, something to that effect. We don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but that would be what you would absolutely be able to add capacity.
All right. Out of left field here, where are we with the Myrtle Grove Elementary?
Myrtle Grove Elementary is ahead of schedule, considerably ahead of schedule. Matter of fact, I walked the level directors through last week. It's fantastic looking. I mean, I can't take y'all in there just yet. It's still pretty much under construction, but we're doing very well. We're very happy, knock wood, barring any type of bad weather events. Fortunately, we're out of the ground and covered up and dried in. We shouldn't have too many problems, but we're doing very well on that. Very excited about it.
Still shooting for December?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We've moved our FF&E delivery up a little bit, about a month, but we're in really good shape. I think you guys will be really pleased with it. There's some really neat elements. If you're not aware of it, we went to the extent of saving brick from the original school and incorporating brick into the main stairwell area. There'll be a mural that'll outline a lot of the history that went into the community and the school itself. We've used shutter doors doors from the stage that we're using for shutters inside, and part of the original stage is being made into a conference room table for the administrative area. So we try to honor as much of that as we could and try to keep the architecture. Going back to what you said, we try to not just honor the architecture of the school, but also the architecture of the community itself. That could not look like some mid-century modern school. It needed to look like an older schoolhouse, and it does. But it's completely modern, terrazzo floors. It's really neat.
I had the opportunity in May before school was out. The principal snuck me in, and I have to say those terrazzo floors are gorgeous.
They are. It's going to turn out really well. Really pleased with that.
And the way it's been done, color coding different wings and
yes,
stuff
sir.
with
it. We call it wayfinding. Yes, sir.
It's gorgeous. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Terrazzo, were you going to have wax, or is it the other type?
No, it is. It's not the old school terrazzo. It's actually an epoxy terrazzo. It's 3/8 of an inch thick, but it's just almost as bulletproof as the original stuff. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Take a break. We're on recess for about This brings us to our agenda item review. Mr. Superintendent, are there any additions or deletions to this month's agenda?
Ended up with a couple, or quite a few. Under section 16, consent curriculum, student services, item C has been added. Section 20, curriculum finance. Item B, consent finance. Item B, item C, and item D have been added. And then we deleted item D and added item E. I think I got that correct. And then under section 31, consent operations, facilities planning, we added item B. And under section 44, items from the superintendent, we deleted item B and added item F. I think that was all of them.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Williams?
Yes.
I'm also looking at a contract right now that has to do with student transportation that I anticipate, it's obviously not been to the superintendent yet, but I think
good.
based
Will
on the
be
time
added.
before school, it should be wending its way to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
If I remember, Allison told us about it yesterday, so it's something we have to do. It's just a matter of getting it to you.
Okay. It is Mr. Adams' month to bring the invocation and pledge. Okay. This moves into the minutes for June. June 16th, June 17th, regular meeting. June 30th, we have our budget workshop. June 30th, a special meeting. Next, we have administrative appointments. Mr. Superintendent.
Be bringing one interim assistant principal for your approval Tuesday night.
Okay, thank you. Items requiring public hearing. There are 2 items for public hearing this month.
Only thing I want to make certain of is after y'all approve this Tuesday night, we will get some information to you about the new law as it relates to cell phones, in particular at elementary and middle, and we will be doing some public announcements, phone calls to all the moms and dads so that they know what that rule is, and that'll be a subject of the conversation also at the admin conference, because it will be a little bit different, in particularly at the middle school. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure everybody's aware. I know the media had asked me some couple of questions. I wasn't going to do anything until you've approved this new policy, and that's what we'll be doing, okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
ma'am.
Superintendent, are we still doing the state going to be doing their?
It got vetoed.
Yeah, okay.
The
Okay.
funding for the
Funding, gotcha.
pouches and all that, it got vetoed, so no ma'am. We're not going to fund it on our own.
Okay.
Thank you. Now moving into the consent agenda, are there any items to be discussed, starting with curriculum? Items 8 through 19. 8 through 19. Yes, Ms. Burgosh.
I have 16A, Escambia County School District Mental Health.
Yes, Mr. Wilson?
Ms. Burgosh, I think you had a specific question.
I did, yes. Mental health is very important. And in there, they talked about different tiers, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. I wanted to find out how is that derived?
So,
About which schools are
so you
tier
can
1.
think of the tiers just like you would from an academic perspective.
Okay.
This is more of the mental health, obviously. So tier 1 is more of that preventative mental health for all students, and that would be delivered by school staff through either a program like bullying awareness, those type of activities. That's given to all students to promote general mental health.
Okay.
Then when you get to tier 2, that's when a student self-discloses something that needs to be addressed. A parent might come in and say, I need some help with my student. It could be a referral from a teacher, and that's where those services would come through more of your school-based guidance counselors, those type of things. And then, of course, the tier 3 is identified when you have some significant mental health needs. That's where your licensed mental health counselors, maybe even referral to outside agencies. So that's how the tiers are broken out.
Thank you. Yes, I am very happy to hear about Tier 1, that it's for all students. I think that's something we need to be very proactive and not reactive.
Yeah, thank you. I will be pulling item 18E, abstain from voting on that due to being a member of the YMCA Board of Directors. Next, we have finance items 20 through 24. Hearing none, moving on to items 25 through 29, human resources. Hearing none, and consent agenda superintendent items, operations 30 through 39. And now the consent, superintendent's items 40 through 42. Anything? Item 44, moving to items from the superintendent. Yes, sir.
I think perhaps this is where Ms. Odom wanted to make sure we spend a little time So there are books, and there are categories for each of the books that are listed. We want to be certain that you are aware of what category they are in and what may have to happen down the road. And that y'all are going to try to address that in your policy. So if a book was not necessarily on our objection list, but is in our catalog, but it had been removed in another school district and was on the state list for removal, it is on this list for you to approve. The way I understand it is if, here in the next couple of weeks, they tell us that the AP class, you're going to read The Bluest Eye. You're going to remove it, even though you'd approved it through your vote a couple of years ago. We would come back to you and say, we need to bring Bluest Eye, that title back for our IB program. That's what I heard. Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. I don't have any other questions that I wanted to ask of you for the listing, but I wanted to make sure. I felt, Bradley, you did great. Dana, Melinda Cruz, all the ladies that worked on this, thank you for putting this together. This is a monumental task.
What was the number of books on this? Close to?
I didn't take the time to count them. I couldn't tell you.
I was going to try to put it back in the spreadsheet, and I didn't know, but it's fine. But
Okay.
I believe this board will move quickly if you got an exception, if you bring it to us.
Yes, sir.
And I need to move back to one item. Oh, excuse me, Ms. Odom. You wait. You good?
I'll just have a conversation with the superintendent.
Okay. Item 40.
Told me it's like 400 and something. 410 maybe. 490?
400.
419. Good odd number. 409. 409.
Yeah, back up to number 43, Mr. Harrell. Items from the board.
Let me get the speaker on here. The other day, I was reading an article in one of the local social media sites, and it had information about the Board of County Commissioners, and then the next day it showed up on northescambia.com. So I went to the Board of County Commissioners and looked at what they're doing pertaining to the referendum or the resolution that we sent them for the election, okay? Pardon me? Go ahead.
Oh, Mr. Harrell brought to my attention that the county commission has a meeting tonight at which they are considering 3 different ordinances to effectuate the placement of our question on the ballot. And it basically has to do with whether it's going to be held at the general election in 2026, the primary in 2026, or at a special election at the determination of the supervisor of elections. And Mr. Harrell contacted me and said our resolution said it's supposed to be on the primary, which is August 18th.
Can I interrupt you there? I felt very uncomfortable with that at the time, my fellow board members, because that it looked to me like they were changing our resolution and making 3 different things out of it, changing the dates and things like that. And my instincts told me that that was not something that needed to take place. They don't get the authority to change another one's resolutions and so forth, so that's the reason I contacted Ms. Odom. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
So I've been in contact with, I've not spoken with Allison Rogers, who is the county attorney, but I have spoken with someone in her office, and I have communicated the concerns that my interpretation of the statute is that the school board gets to decide what the date is. I think that if you had left the question silent as to whether it would be a general, a primary, or a special election, then it would be up to the BCC to decide which of those it was going to. But the board specifically decided that it was going to be at the statewide primary, and we'll see what the county commission does. They're meeting tonight, and my position has been made known to them, so we shall see what they do.
There's a
and I do intend to attend that meeting this evening.
And I'm going to attend that meeting also tonight. It's at the end of the agenda, so it's going to be a long day because it's items from the attorney there tonight. But my feeling is this. The majority of this board has spoken very clearly as to what they want. We want it on the ballot. It was indicated on there, the wording that we wanted on the ballot. It was sent to them, and the statutes to me are very clear that they, that's the reason I referred it to Ms. Odom, that they need to honor that, not go changing it. So they've got 3 proposals there, which I've given you a copy of, and they're going to have a public hearing on August the 7th at 5:30, and then following that public hearing, they're going to make their final decision on which one of the 3. Well, at that point, I don't believe that they're acting I don't believe they're acting in our best interest there. We set the date. We chose that date because we thought it was the best one for the resolution to pass. And now they're wanting to change it for some reason, maybe to the 3rd, or let Mr. Bender have the permission. To me, they're out of bounds there. So I'd like to hear from the board what their feelings are on that.
Well, they can go ahead and take the vote, but it won't be a legal vote. I mean, it's clear by law. I mean, there's already been cases in South Florida on this, and it's really just a formality. It's passed to them. They send it on to Robert Bender. And I mean, that's all that should happen because we placed the date, we placed the times, and so down South Florida, a commission voted not to have a referendum, and that was overturned pretty quickly. So they got a pretty experienced attorney, and I know this one talks to her every once in a while, so and relay the information. But I hope they don't make a lot of drama out of it because it shouldn't be.
No, I agree with you, Mr. Adams. It shouldn't be a drama. We were very specific in what we asked. The majority of the board spoke very clearly, and I don't believe that they need to be changing our resolutions or coming up with other dates and things. And I may be, Ms. Odom, I know you may.
I will say, I have an excellent working relationship with the county attorney's office, and I do not think that this is arising out of any attempt to undermine what the board has done. It's my understanding that they have operated for a long time with the understanding that this is how those kinds of things are done. I wasn't here in 2018, so I don't know how they handled the resolution the first time it went around. But I genuinely think it has to do with this is the way they've handled it in the past. I've not heard that there's any kind of, cloak and dagger attempt to undermine the school board's authority.
Well, I hope you're right there. I hope that that is the case, but in any instance, it needs to be monitored very closely what's happening here because it could affect that election. The board has spoken very clearly. They want that on the primary, and that's what we're expecting them to do.
And a special election is going to cost money that we don't need to spend anyway. So, but some of them court cases, to be fair, also came after that 2018 referendum, I believe. So that may be why they just didn't realize it.
Right, and that was a conversation that I had. The Hillsborough case was in 2024. It involved a different statute, but it still had to do with the school board placing something on the ballot through the county commission.
And the Clay County one did have something to do with the date. It was in 14. There's two cases there, and they wanted to change it to 16, and the judge says, oh, no, no, no. The board, the school board in Clay County was very specific. That's the date they wanted, and they had to honor it. So I think that's the message that I'm going to give them anyway, you know, that we were very specific on that, and that's the date we want honored, this board does.
Okay, next we have public forum. We have one speaker, Mr. Rich Hosnick. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Ms. Odom, Mr. Superintendent. I just didn't know how this workshop input worked from the community, so I could just table this, but I'll just say a couple of thoughts from listening. Very good discussion today. A lot of hard work by members of your staff. I applaud this. I would say to the reps from District 1 and 2, your instincts are correct when it comes to the book review committee. And I reference, in fact, I read it to the rep from District 5 during the break, but the letter from the Attorney General to the Hillsborough County School Board by name, he put them on notice that they were in violation of Florida statutes by allowing these books to be there. It doesn't matter how they got there, but they were in violation. And then he went on to say that I will carefully monitor your actions to determine what formal legal actions by my office is warranted. So in other words, you got to be careful. Yeah, you want it's a trust and verify kind of thing again. So I would be careful before you turn over your responsibility, even to our esteemed superintendent. Now, the Commissioner of Education had his own letter to the superintendent over there at Hillsborough also that put him on notice separately. But this is your responsibility. Don't delegate it to anyone else, because you'll remain culpable if that material remains in the libraries. 1 second. Said this, as Florida's chief legal officer, I write to request immediate removal of certain materials available in school libraries in Hillsborough County. And then he went on to say, these materials are patently pornographic. Your district's provision of them to minors is violative of your obligations under Florida law. You're the ones held responsible under Florida law. Don't delegate that to anybody else, not even to the superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you. See anything else from the board, Superintendent? If there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.